Call to order. The date is August 18th, 2009. Let the record show all board members are present except for David Jacobs. We're going to take things a little out of order this evening. We're going to move the approval of minutes until the end of the agenda. We'll start with our first application, actually our only application of related to old business this evening. Concerns a conditional use permit that this board issued to Ms. Pirillo some time ago. Staff has asked the board to review that conditional use permit and to consider revoking it. And before we get into that, I want to ask, is Ms. Lowe in the audience this evening, or is there anyone here purporting to represent Ms. Lowe in this action? Please raise your hand. Is there anyone here who wishes to offer testimony that the permit should be revoked? See, two. Anyone wishing to offer testimony that the permit should not be revoked? No one. Okay. What I'd like to do then, we have a rather lengthy agenda this evening. What I'd like to do is to hear the staff report, and after that let the board discuss it and kind of determine whether or not we've got, we feel we have grounds to take a vote based on that, and dispense with taking public testimony if that's acceptable. If there is, I'd like to move to a vote. And this is simply for expediency. It's not to deny anyone's right to speak. But if any board member wants to hear the testimony prior to taking a vote, we'll do that. Or if anyone in the audience objects to that, we will certainly hear testimony before we take a vote. So let's just keep that thought in mind. We'll come back to it in a few minutes. Let's hear the staff report. Oh, wait, before we do, we probably should swear in the witnesses, the people who wish to speak tonight. I neglected to do that.
Would everyone who is assigned to speak stand and raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the information you're to give tonight on whichever application, pro or con, is the truth to the best of your information and belief? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Bonnie, if you would present the report on Ms. Pirillo's permit.
Pirillo was approved on December 18, 2007 for a conditional use permit for hosting special events at 3975 Lemons Mill Road. As part of that approval, the board had attached 6 conditions to that. Those are noted in your staff report. Would you like me to read through those? In May, staff was notified by adjoining property owners that the applicant was not following all the conditions the board had set. And in your packet, you can review that letter attached from the property owner. After new information arose, it was clear to staff that the applicant was not following the set conditions of the board. On July 2nd, 2009, United States Attorney's Office, our contact was Linda Epperly through them, contacted staff and stated that the United States is in the process of forfeiting this property. The property is still in Ms. Lowe's name until the final forfeiture is issued. Ms. Epperly stated that Ms. Lowe had broken the conditions that she and her attorney had set on her previously. Ms. Epperly said the United States would defer to local zoning, and that as soon-to-be owners, they have no issue with what the board does with this. Staff is recommending the revocation of the permit by the board. The conditions as set were not met by the applicant, which can be seen from pictures and documentation from adjoining property owners. With months of review by staff, the board, and the applicant, there should have been no confusion on the conditional use and attached conditions. And all those minutes were attached to your packet if you had time to review those. Any questions for staff right now?
Yes, I have. There weren't any photographs in my packet.
Those will actually be presented this evening.
You can present those this evening?
Yes.
Ms. Lowe was notified that the board was going to consider review of her permit this evening?
Yes, she was. She actually received 2 letters and an email.
Did she respond in any way to those?
She did respond to the email, and there was confusion, and she felt that she didn't need to be here tonight. But
She felt she did not need to be here tonight.
yes, and then we sent the letter saying if she did not show, the board still could take her permit away.
Okay. You mentioned in the staff report and in your that you just relayed to us that she has not met the conditions that the U.S. attorney and her attorney stipulated for her, but those conditions are not related to the conditional use permit.
No, they are not at all.
There's a separate legal action.
Correct.
that's gone on with that property, where that property is in the process of being forfeited to the United States government.
Yes.
And what they had worked out, she has not complied with, but that's not to say the U.S. Attorney said she did not comply with our conditions.
Correct.
Just to clarify that. Of the, in looking at the letter we have from the property owners, there are, from the Britons, there are 8 allegations there, as I read them.
They do have 8. Now, in the letter I have for her, it was just the conditions I listed in the report, but she might be able to address her 8 reasons better than I can.
Okay, so you all have not, or have you not independently verified that these 8 violations occurred, or you feel confident that they did or did not, or no opinion? Or?
We did go to the site, and the applicant was not there, and on the day we went, there was no one on the site at all. So we were not able to verify that anything was not being done correctly, but we just know that we had the property owner come in and complain, and she had pictures and documentation.
Do we know the timetable for when the U.S. government expects to obtain title of the property?
No, we do not.
But according to our conditions, as soon as that happens, the conditional use permit is null and void anyway.
Anyway.
Because upon transfer of the property, the conditional use permit goes away. So, you know, whether we revoke or not, at some point, sooner or later, this permit is going to go away, right? So we're really, if we act tonight, we're accelerating the inevitable. That's a fair statement, you think? You agree?
But if she is in violation of the conditions, I mean, what's to stop her from continuing to violate them until the U.S. does whatever they're gonna do?
Oh, I agree. I'm not suggesting we delay anything.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting we do that. Do you want to show the photographs now?
Actually, the adjoining property owner will be giving that presentation. They brought those to us.
Okay. Board want to see those? Yes.
If I make just one suggestion, since actual notice was given, notice was responded to, and in fact, staff apparently told by her that she didn't need to be here. She's not here to answer the complaints.
Wait a minute.
No, she needed to be here, we told her.
No. She told staff that she didn't need to be here.
Just to clarify.
No. She was told in 3 different communications she needed to be here. But since she chose not to be here, I'm not sure you need to go very far, because frankly, she's been offered her due process review and she's declined it. So I think perhaps the most you need to do is just to determine that in fact there's a minimum amount of information in the record. That may well be just by the photographs. And at that point, you could go ahead and entertain a vote. You can certainly go ahead and give the entire hearing as if she were here, but she's going to be hard pressed to appeal any decision you make, since she didn't even bother to show up to address it.
Well, let's at least review the photographic evidence then.
It would suit me, excuse me, but I mean, if either Mr. or Ms. Britton could just swear that the allegations in this letter are true, they would need to go into them, as long as we had that.
Wonderful
evidence.
idea. Do you do that?
My name's Craig. Yeah, I would swear that, you know, the facts as related in the letter are true.
Will you come to the microphone, please?
We can take some photographs.
And again, state your name, please, for the record.
Craig Britton.
Thank
And
you.
I will verify that the facts as we put down in the letter are true. We did take some photographs the day of the event as it was setting up, and I actually talked to the event planner to try to find out what was going on, because we were a little concerned with the event and where it was going to take place. And she advised me that they had basically rented out the house for the weekend, and that Ms. Lowe was not there for the party. And at that point, there wasn't much we could do but sit back and kind of watch it all take place. So that was, I think, almost a year and a half after she had gotten the original permit to have the special events. That's the first special event that we ever noticed going on. Okay. So I had even hoped that it wasn't going to take place. And as I said, none of the improvements to the property, which were required as part of having the special events, as far as putting a fence up, putting signs up, putting notices were ever done. So I just assumed that it was not gonna be a special events house, so. These are some of the photos that we took. It's kind of running down the property line between our property and Ms. Lowe's. The fence that is there, the black fence, is actually on our property, and it extends another 2 feet toward her driveway. So the event that they had was basically about 3 feet from where our paddock is that we use for a lot of layups with horses and such. And the barn that we have adjacent to that is probably 50, 60 feet from that area. So with the event that was taking place and then the fireworks that were set off later that evening about 12:30, we had a couple instances of actually people coming into the barn that evening that we had. I saw them coming in with their kids, and we had to run them out of the barn. They got a little belligerent. We asked them to leave. We had to threaten to call the police to get them to leave before they finally would depart the area. So those are some of our concerns. This is just more information we had, basically detailing. There's, I think, 6 copies here.
I think
Is this
that's,
the old Cherry Knoll property?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, sure.
this, I think these are,
Got 6 copies.
Yeah.
We probably got.
yeah, this is in our package.
And I don't know if this is something the board can address or not, but I think the property is currently being used, I'm going to say, as a boarding house or a bed and breakfast. She does rent out rooms in the house, advertises them online. She's also rented part of the property in the back where there's now a motor home that's, as far as I know, talking to the lady who's living in the home, is going to be a permanent fixture back there. And it's set up with hoses and electrical lines running across the ground and that type of deal. So
I think the board can address our conditional use permit. Anything beyond that, I think, goes to enforcement. So this board can't, but if there are violations occurring out there, that should be able to be dealt
Right.
with in another.
we just
another
wanted
avenue.
kind of to bring those up to see if this was the
Okay.
proper forum to do those now or some other time. So.
Well, we can't do anything.
We can't do anything,
Sure.
But
yeah,
somebody can.
but somebody can.
But basically, the concerns that we had when we originally came to the board about what would happen if there were special events at the house, all came true with this first special event that we had. I mean, every one of the concerns we had with the amount of traffic, the people wandering in the fields with the horses, the people wandering on our property, the fireworks going off, you know, none of those were compatible with what that property is basically used for now.
Thank you.
I don't, Mr. Payton, have anything to add to this for, or?
I'm here to,
I'm sorry, would you state your name, please?
name's Jim Payton.
Thank you.
I'm here to ask you not to extend this conditional permit. The reason is the individual is acting very irresponsibly. She can't or won't follow direction. I don't know if she owns the property or doesn't own the property. I understand it's in transition between the federal government and her. As I understood it, when she was going to have these parties, she was supposed to be there. She isn't there. There's no supervision. People are wandering all over the place. And it may be superfluous to some people, but there's some very expensive horses out there on the farm that I own. And I just think that since the individual is not responsible and won't follow instruction, that the thing should not be extended or, as a matter of fact, I think it should be revoked. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Does the board feel like we have enough information on the record now to go ahead and take a vote? You feel like it's taking a straw poll? Anyone object, anyone who came here to offer testimony on this application, do you object if we go ahead and take a vote on that now without hearing you? Just for expediency, we're not trying to deny anybody's right to speak. Okay, seeing no objection, I'll entertain a motion. Staff recommendation is the permit be revoked, and the corroborating testimony we have supports that recommendation for revocation. Do we have a motion to revoke the permit?
Well, I'll make it. I wasn't here when it was.
Well, I was here. I'll make the motion to revoke the permit.
And can we clarify your motion to say the motion to revoke
Due to-
is based upon the,
Due to the fact she didn't follow the guidelines in the first place,
Did
the
not-
guidelines that we gave her.
okay.
If I could also suggest you include in your motion that you make a finding that, according to the testimony, that the conditions placed upon the applicant were violated,
Okay.
period, so.
Motion by Johnny Cannon. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Leo Reed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, a like sign. Hearing no opposition, motion carries. Permit's revoked. Staff will notify Ms. Lowe of this action, please. Thank you all for coming. Moving on to new business, our first application is S-18-09, Gary Joe Payne, 309 Enid Court, Georgetown, requesting a home occupation conditional use permit for a welding machine shop. Is Mr. Payne here, or he's here? Excuse me, I'm sorry.
The address is 308.
Oh, okay. 308 Enid Court? Okay, I'm sorry, I may have misspoken. Staff have a report they want to offer?
The applicant, Gary Joe Payne, is requesting a home occupation conditional use permit for a welding machine shop at his residence. The project site is located in Lancelot subdivision. It is zoned A1, R1A residential. Staff did visit the site on August 7th. The applicant currently has designated a shop area with the materials he will use for the welding business in half of his garage. It does not exceed the 300 square feet requirement. He is currently not operating the business, he's just using it for a few hobby projects. The applicant has not proposed any kind of signage for the home occupation. The site does include a large driveway that will allow for pickup and drop-offs, and there is adequate site distance for these vehicles to safely exit and enter the drive. But the applicant did make it clear that there would be little to very little to no traffic generated on the site. Staff does recommend approval of the home occupation. We have a couple of our standard conditions attached. Then we also did add number 2, there shall be no storage of any materials outside the accessory building. And 3, no signage will be permitted for the home occupation. Any questions for staff?
Mr. Payne?
I'm Gary Payne, and I'm requesting, the home occupation permit. As far as any noise or any change or anything like that, I won't be doing anything different than I've done for the last 20 years. I just retired from Toyota. I've been there 21 years, and I've been doing what I'm going to do all along as a hobby. So now I'm going to try to make a dollar doing it. And my place is clean and neat. It's all heated and air conditioned. All the work's going to be contained inside the building. There's not going to be anything outside that'll change the looks of anything or whatever.
You've been doing this as a hobby for how long?
Well, all my life, but
Well, I mean, at this location.
at this
I'm sorry.
location, 20 years.
Okay.
And I've never had a complaint from anybody, so.
You're not going out anywhere, you're just gonna have your business right there, Gary?
Well, if there's a demand for it, I'm gonna buy a mobile welding rig. That will be done off-site. The people at Toyota asked me to come back as a contractor, and I haven't made a decision whether I'm gonna do that or not. I'm 60 years old, and I'm not so sure I want that much work, but if there's a demand for it, I'm not gonna invest $30,000-$40,000 in a welding rig. But if there's a demand for it, I will. That won't be done there. That'll be done on construction sites and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but you won't have a lot of vehicles or anything like that, welding trucks and
Oh, no.
stuff like that around there.
In this garage area, on that 300 square foot area, will you have a partition between that and the rest of the garage?
Yeah, there's a petition there and a doorway.
What type of partition?
It's a studded wall, it's insulated studded wall.
Drywall on both sides?
Yes.
When you're welding, will your garage door have to be open?
No, I've got smoke eaters inside, you know, if you're doing much that creates a breathing hazard, I've got it really works like a vacuum cleaner. It pulls the smoke into a filter, you know.
What about flammable materials? Gasoline?
I keep all that in the other room. Everything's away from the welding area, you know.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions of the applicant? Anyone here wishing to offer testimony in support of this application? Please raise your hand. Anyone here wishing to offer testimony as to why this permit should not be approved? Please raise your hand. We have one here.
My name is Bill Shaver. I live at 119 Knight Court in Lancelot. I am reluctant to speak in cases like this for fear that my comments may be taken personal, which they are definitely not. I'm not well acquainted with Mr. Payne, but I have chatted with him on a couple of occasions. Have no problem with him personally. He gave me a head of cabbage out of his garden just a few days ago. He's been a better neighbor to me than I have to him, no doubt. However, if he were my brother, I would make the same comments. We've lived in our home for 35 years. When we were looking for property in Scott County, we considered a property on Delaplane Road. But we realized at that time that there were not restrictions there, and we didn't know what might move in next to us. Clark already had a big forklift factory just down the road. So we chose instead the property in Lancelot, and we don't regret it. The place we looked at on Delaplane Road is now about in the middle of the Toyota plant. We want to maintain that rural residential nature that caused us to buy the property in the first place. We don't want to live in an industrial park. And I've heard what Mr. Payne said, and you know, he's claiming that there won't be any change, but you know, every little bit is a little bit of change. When I look out my back door now, I see a huge building being built. It is to house a cabinetry factory, cabinet manufacturing facility. I didn't know a thing about that until they started building the building. My property does not adjoin that, and no one whose property did contacted me, so I was not aware of that. So now I have, you know, that to look at, and I just don't want to see the neighborhood grow into a collection of businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have one question for you. What was your address again? I'm trying to see where your house is in relation to his.
I'm at 119 Knight Court. My property shares a back corner with Mr. Payne's back.
Oh, I see.
Back corner.
Thank you. I see now. Anyone have any questions for this witness? Anyone else here to speak this evening on this application? Ma'am?
I'm Judy Rexrow. We back up to Mr. Payne at 121 Knight Court. We're right in the back of it. I guess my concern is the safety. The gasoline and, you know, the welding, the grinding. I guess I'm just concerned with, you know, things catching on fire, the noise. I just retired this year after 35 years of teaching, and I want to be able to go out in my backyard and sit and enjoy it. That's one reason we moved out there, is because of the privacy. On the other side of me in front, I can hear the cows mooing, So it's very peaceful and quiet out there, and I would just like to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to offer any testimony? Board members? What's your pleasure? I seen nothing in here, unless I overlooked it, about hours of operation. Is it appropriate to restrict hours of operation, something like this?
Anything, the basic rule is anything that would take a use that's not ordinarily a permitted use and make it work and not be a problem for an existing neighborhood or community, then that would be an appropriate condition to apply.
That's something the board may want to consider if the board chooses to approve.
I'd be more concerned just about off-site noise than hours of operation. I mean, if he's got an adequately insulated room where he's been doing welding and grinding and that kind of thing all this time, then there shouldn't be any noise off-site. And at the time of day, I mean, it's kind of like we addressed in an earlier thing. I mean, I'm sure this lady sits outside all hours. I mean, she'll be out there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 9 o'clock at night. I don't think hours of operation is going to help their concerns, but I do think noise, a condition about noise, that there be no more noise off-site than there is now, would address those concerns.
Have you been doing this quite a while in your garage like that? I mean, as your own hobby for a long time? Have you all heard him, before?
I'm sorry, if you're going to answer that question, if you're going to ask a question, we really need you to come to the microphone and give your answer. Are you asking these people a question?
Yeah, if they've heard him before, welding or anything like that.
And you're going to have to state your name again. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you're Ms.
Rex Road.
Rex
Judy
Road.
Rex Road.
Thank you.
If it's been a hobby, and now it's gonna be a business, then you're gonna have more going on. So I'm concerned with that. Like Mr. Shaver, I'm concerned with the traffic coming in. If it's been a hobby, then there hasn't been traffic and things. But if it's going to be a business, then there's going to be traffic coming in. There possibly would be more noise. It's going to be a bigger production and more production. So.
But I think his question is has there been a noise issue for as long as y'all both lived there 20 plus years? Has there been a noise
been
issue to
there
date?
25 years.
Yes, you would come to the microphone, please. You can stay here, ma'am, if you need to. Not so you don't have to run back and forth.
I got neighbors live right beside of me, and the ones that live closest to my shop, I tell them, if you hear any noise, you let me know and I'll correct the issue.
Yeah.
And if anybody complains about the noise there, you all let me know and I'll shut it down. Because I moved there for the same reasons they did. The peace and quiet. It's clean, it's neat. My place is clean and neat. There's not a blade of grass out of place. And I promise the neighbors, and I mean, I'm a civil person. If they hear one bit of noise, I'll either correct it or shut it down. If it disturbs anybody else's peace, I will shut it down. You have my word on that.
Would you have any objection to adding that as a condition to the conditional use for the home
I have no
occupation?
objection, no, because if it's a problem to somebody, I wouldn't want somebody beside me, it's disturbing me, that's fair enough.
Maybe a condition that if there are noise complaints, it'll be brought up for review rather than an automatic revocation, but it needs to be reviewed, I think.
Make sure that.
Yeah. I'm sorry, do you have a?
I was going to ask him, so that's all right.
You want to ask him a question? Mr. Reed has a question for you, sir.
How heavy equipment will you be welding on? What's the heaviest?
Well, I'm just gonna be working by myself, and The biggest thing I'd possibly be well known would be a flow rack, like stuff that they use at Toyota in assembly. Nothing any bigger than you can haul in the back of a pickup truck. You know, I'm gonna do everything inside the building. There's not gonna be anything done outside the building. If it won't fit inside and I can't handle it by myself, I'm not gonna do it, you know.
Your name again, please.
Bill Schauffer.
Schauffer. Thank you.
I couldn't hear every word. I'm about half deaf. I did not hear all the restrictions that were already written into this permit. Is there anything there that talks about the building or expanding the building or anything like that?
Could not expand the building without coming back to the board. The conditional use is approved for the facilities on site. Excuse me? Number,
Did you hear that?
yeah. This is a standard condition that the staff has recommended. The application shall return to the Board of Adjustment prior to any change which affects the approved conditions, and that would include enlargement of the physical structure. So he would have to come to us before enlarging anything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Anyone else want to speak on this application? Board members, are you ready to move? Do we have a motion?
I move we approve the proposed home occupation based upon the conditions listed by the staff and with the additional condition that any complaints regarding noise from the home occupation will result in staff review and potential revocation of the conditional use permit.
Motion by Ms. Eilish. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second, Mr. Cannon. Any discussion of the motion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed by like sign. Hearing none, motion carries. The permit is issued with those conditions. And you can contact staff for further direction. Thank you all for all coming tonight.
Will I get something in the mail?
Yeah, I'll send you a letter.
Okay. Those conditions will be in the.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Our next application is number S-20-09, Thaddeus and Elizabeth Roark, 3005 Ironworks Road, requesting variance to encroach 35 feet into a required side yard setback to construct a attached garage. Are the Roarks here this evening? Do we have a staff report?
Just for the board to note, on the aerial that is included in your packet, there is a red line around lot 3005, and that is not the correct lot. GIS was not able to move that up to the correct lot before we had these printed, but just so you are aware.
Yeah.
The
This is the
project
correct
site is
one.
zoned A1 agricultural.
This one down here?
Yes, that one's correct.
And currently has a single-family residential home on a 5-acre tract. The applicant's tract requires a 100 feet side yard setback, and they are requesting a 35 feet variance. The lot has one location within the setbacks to construct the garage. This is to the back rear of the property. The applicant has stated that this location would obstruct the view of the residence on tract number 3. So that's kind of hard to see, but that is the tract to the rear of tract number 2 on the right side. No other locations are available on this lot due to septic tank leach lines and issues with topography. Staff does recommend approval of the variance, and there are 2 added conditions: that the applicant must obtain a building permit and all other regulations of the A1 zone must be met. Any questions for staff?
Is that 100-foot setback because that's an easement that goes back there along the side of the lot?
You know, I'm honestly not
Because
sure.
one side of the lot has 100 and the other side apparently doesn't.
Yep, there you go.
Is that the reason?
No, I don't know.
Oh, we don't know?
The property behind us that has the same easement only has a 50-foot setback.
That's what the staff report says, that this is the only property that has a 100-yard side setback, and we just all wondered why. We don't know. And don't get personal. So this is not a variance request from a requirement of the ordinance. It's a requested variance from the approved plat. So it's, okay.
It's a dimensional.
Mr. or Ms. Rourke? Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Roark.
Rourke?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here.
Yes, please.
Well, we're just wanting to build a 30 foot by 40 foot detached garage. We've collected a few toys and we just need a place to store them. You know, so all we're wanting to do is encroach by 35 feet, and the land there is flat, and you know, the building is going to be attractive in appearance. It's not going to detract, that I feel, from the property in any way. I believe when we submitted our application, we submitted actual plans and drawings depicting what type of building we were planning to build. And we do plan to build it so that it will be in keeping with the house, you know, appearance wise, as far as the color coordination and whatnot.
Okay. Anyone have any questions of the Rourkes?
Will it be facing Ironworks Road?
Yes, the garage door will be facing Ironworks Road.
How will your drive coming into the garage?
We probably won't build a drive to the garage. The vehicles, day-to-day use of vehicles won't be kept in there, so we would just cut through the yard. It's more for our lawnmower and ATVs that we have.
Anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Anyone here to speak against this application? I see no hands. Oh, I'm sorry, we have one? I'm sorry, would you come to the podium, please?
My name is Michael Reed. I live at 3001 Ironworks Road. I'm not here to tell the Roarks not to build their building, just a few concerns that we might have. One of them is the reason for the 100-foot easement is for access for our driveway. If you'll notice on track 2, you'll see the roadway that goes back to the back. So we actually drive through the Roarks property to get to our home. That's the reason for the 100-foot easement. That was put in place so that we would have rights to come through there and maintain the driveway. So there's 3 of us that maintain the driveway. Majority vote rules on whether the driveway needs sealer or whether it needs to be repaved. As a matter of fact, we 3 paid for installing the driveway several years ago. My only concern is if the Roarks begin to use the driveway, then somehow they would need to be paying a quarter of the maintenance on the driveway, whereas right now it's split 3 ways. But they could not be on the maintenance agreement because that would therefore possibly have a split vote. Currently there are 3 of us on the maintenance agreement. Majority vote rules. If we add somebody else, then there's a possibility of no majority.
So they don't currently use the driveway?
No.
And don't actually plan to use the driveway.
So how are you going to access your garage?
Cut through our yard. It would be set back behind it.
So you have a driveway that currently just comes straight to your house from
Right.
Ironworks Road?
As you pull in, one
It's on
driveway
the
goes to the
opposite
right
side.
and ours goes to the left.
Yours goes to the left and here.
Yes.
Okay, so
Oh.
do we have that aerial?
It's right here, yes.
Yeah, I can see it here. We don't have it on the board. On
Yeah, you can see the driveway.
So
Okay.
they can get,
So-
they can get to the building from their driveway.
so are there-
Without having to cut another road?
Are there-
No,
Are there-
they come behind the house, probably.
Are there two separate entrances off of Ironworks, or one entrance that splits?
2 separate.
2 separate,
The Roarks driveway and our driveway is right beside each other.
right next to one another. Okay. And so you all will continue to use your existing driveway
On a day-to-day
and,
use, yes.
and not use this gentleman's and his other 2 partners' driveway at all? Sir?
Roy Cornett, Beth Ann's my daughter, by the way.
Oh,
But,
okay.
This guy raises a good question. I don't think the row arc had any intention of using the driveway. But I think the question he's raising is a legitimate question, that if and when they were to ever use it, if something were put in place where an arrangement would be made between them, that would be good for everybody involved.
Sure.
That, if the row arc decided to take off and move to Sadyville, for example, and they sell the next guy, then that option would be there. But,
You're not trying to get her to, are you?
yeah. And as far as how to handle your vote deal, that's a good point. Maybe giving them a minority vote, but it doesn't, because I guess one thing, it's not gonna be back, but they won't be using maybe, 100 yards of driveway is all they'd be using. And if you may prorate it out based on percentage use, just a suggestion.
But at this point, they're not gonna use that driveway at all,
No,
right?
That's right.
So I think if we approve this tonight, we're gonna approve it predicated on that condition that you continue to use your driveway and not his driveway. If y'all wanna come back, have some kind of agreement later to do something else and he's come back before this board, we can take it up again. But anything we do tonight is, you're gonna use your drive, he's gonna use his drive, and everybody's happy.
One other thing I'd like to mention, the next property back has got a barn that sits about the same distance off the driveway as what the row arcs are requesting.
Okay.
And so it's gonna be pretty much a twin to it as far as the size and distance setback.
Okay.
The current barn that's there, was there before anything else from the original plat. It's been there all along before any houses were built, from the previous property owner who developed, the estate. One other concern we have is our water lines that run through the front of the Roar's property, and of course electric line. I don't know about that, but we would like to just address the concern that those aren't disrupted in any way.
Well, his father works for the water company and he works for Kentucky Utilities, so I think we're good on not messing with the water electric lines.
Well, that's
Well-
one of the reasons you wanna put it where you wanna put it, is so
Right,
it won't.
to avoid those.
That's-
Right.
that's
It's gonna be
pretty
on
funny. Yeah.
the Payne's Depot side of the utility, the electric line that comes through there.
You'd be required to avoid utilities or repair any damage, whether you needed a permit from this board or not.
Right.
I think this gentleman's concerned that there not be any damage.
That's right, that's right. Well, but you go through the proper steps. You call them before you dig line, you do those sorts of things before construction. Yes. Anything else from anyone?
Now, and I will mention, as the staff report said, the only other, due to topography, the only other place we could put it would be almost directly in front of his house, I believe, right? So, and the reason for filing for the variance is we really didn't want to obstruct his view, and that's within our building setback,
And this gentleman is who, and he lives where?
directly behind us.
Directly behind, in that third tract? Okay. Anyone else wish to speak? Anything else? Mr. Reed? No? Board?
I make a motion to approve the garage.
And
Stipulation of.
With the stipulations.
And we'll motion to approve, based upon the representations in the staff report, which is incorporated, and with the condition that the RARs continue to use their own driveway and not the adjacent driveway.
That's
Fair?
right. That's fair.
Motion by Mr. Reed, second.
Second.
Second by Johnny Cannon. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed by like sign. Hearing no opposition, motion carries. Permit's approved. Thank you all. Staff will be in touch. Our next application, number S-21-09, Land and Timber, Inc., northeast corner Rogers Gap Road and US 25, requesting conditional use permit to operate a horse trailer sales and service operation. Do we have the applicant here this evening? You're here. We have a staff report?
The location for the conditional use permit is at the corner of Rogers Gap and US 25. You can see this on the aerial. Go forward, I'm sorry. Thank you. The project site is zoned A1 agricultural and is a 5-acre tract. Currently, the acreage is vacant and overgrown. Horse trailer services and sales are not listed as a conditional use in the A1 zone. Therefore, staff recommends denial of this application.
Any questions for staff?
I have one question, just to, so I get the idea. The